Hi, it's Charles Kelly, Money Tips. You may have read this week that stock markets in America plunged this week after a Chinese tech company, DeepSeek, launched a platform that is supposed to be just as good as something like ChatGPT and is going to challenge the dominances of the American providers, but at a fraction of the cost because they haven't had as much money to invest in it. So what the Chinese have done is innovate and use the funds they've got rather than spending billions as have most of the American tech companies. And Nvidia stock prices fell, or they lost 500 billion in a day, 500 billion on their stock share price in a day. It's the largest ever amount to be lost on the stock market in America. And that's like, 500 billion, half a trillion. It's just amazing. It's not half a trillion, but 500 billion. It's just an enormous amount of money, but it's recovered, and most of the markets have recovered since then because Donald Trump got up and said it's a wake-up call and this sort of thing. We need to just take this as a wake-up call. As you can see, the Nasdaq is now back to where it was. Let's just show you here on my Hargreaves Lansdowne app. That's not a product placement, by the way. You can see there was that dip in the middle there. You see that dip? But now it's kind of gone back up because I think they realised it was all a bit of a panic over nothing. But the underlying factors, and this accounts for the Nasdaq, Dow Jones and the S&P 500, is I think they're all a little bit overpriced. The market in the US is heavily reliant on these tech stocks. If you look at the S&P 500, a lot of it is down to these tech stocks, the Metas, the Nvidia, Google and all these stocks that have grown so much in the last few years, and they are, I believe they're highly priced. The PE ratio is very high. That's the price to earnings ratio, which is a rough guide as to the value of that stock, and all the experts are saying that they're overpriced. In fact, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest stock market investors of all time, from Berkshire Hathaway, his fund over a period made 20% per annum, more almost double the average of the S&P 500. Now he's not doing that at the moment. What he actually is doing at the moment is last year they sold billions of pounds dollars worth of stock. In fact, now they're sitting on $300 billion in cash, and what they're waiting for is for the market to come down, and then they will swoop in like a big vulture, swooping up companies at sale prices or swooping up more shares of the companies that they already invest in. They tend to invest in perennial type shares that don't move up and down that much, but have been good earners over the years. Coca-Cola famously is one of them. He always has a Coke in his hand when he's appearing in public. Whether he drinks it or not, I don't know. Companies like McDonald's and Bank of America, Apple he got into, Microsoft, he got into those late to the game, but he's a very clever investor, and they tend to buy companies, more or less, smaller companies. They more or less buy a controlling share and let the companies run them, but they don't own Coca-Cola and McDonald's, of course. But he is sitting on a massive amount of cash waiting for the market to go down, as are a lot of investors. But it doesn't seem to go down, does it? It keeps going up, even when we say a year or two ago, yes, the market's going to collapse, but it doesn't because of this government stimulus and all the government spending. So we shall have to see what happens. Bitcoin also took a bit of a tumble as well. So let's see what happens with those markets. But personally, I wouldn't be putting my life savings into the market, and if in my pension funds, I've moved them to safer areas. I've got some shares left, but I'm more or less out of the market. If you're in the market, try and put a stop loss on your shares, which means it would automatically be sold if the price dropped below a certain level. So in other words, if you bought a share for £100, you could set up with your broker online to say if this share falls below, say, 95, it's automatically sold. So it protects you in the event of a crash. So that's what I personally am out of the market, more or less. I've got some, but I'm more or less out of the market. And I'm sitting in mostly cash in my pension fund, but a lot of people are not. A lot of people have got all their pension fund in the market. And that's fine if you're young and you can recover, because the prices will go up in the future. But if you're nearing retirement, that's the time you want to talk to an expert or your broker or your pension fund administrators to balance your portfolio out so that it's not all exposed to the market. Because if it falls, say, a few months before you're due to retire, your value of your fund could be 30% less, for instance. So you don't have to wait until that recovers. So that's my own personal view on the markets. You've got to seek your own advice, of course, and take your own advice. But the tech stocks in America have largely sort of bounced back from that big shock. But it does show you how fragile the market is. Just one little company in China launches something and the whole market gets into a panic. That shows you how nervous they must be in the markets. And it only takes a few sales, and then the computers then kick in and start selling based on previous orders, on your stop loss orders, and then it can trigger a run on the market. Now, that didn't happen, but it'd be interesting to see what does happen. Of course, we got Donald Trump in power now, talking up the market, talking up America, but a lot of people doubt that he's going to make that much difference in the short term. So the market hasn't exactly gone up that much since he's come in, since the inauguration anyway. So I don't think the market's expecting any great shakes, but let's see what happens. Thanks very much. I just got to give you a quick report there. By the way, in the UK, the Chancellor today actually stood up and talked about Britain going for growth, much more positive than before when it was all doom and gloom. We've got this black hole, it's tough times. Now it's all talking up, after she's had a few telling off from the industry and Barclays Bank and that sort of. Now she said Britain is open for business. We're going to build that third runway in is it the third or the fourth runway in Heathrow Airport that they've been talking about for 40 years. A proper runway, a new runway, hasn't been built for about 80 years, and now she's saying we're going to get this done. But actually, there isn't actually a planning application in. There's no proposal in. So whether it will happen very quickly, I don't know. And what's happened with previous governments, the reason it's been dithering around is that the planning laws here enable people to launch appeals and then go to judicial review and basically put a spanner in the works. And it's happening with a lot of planning applications. So Labour want to sweep that away and say, right, no, we want growth. You've got to, especially these large infrastructure products, we've got to just move you out the way, just like they do in communist China, really. Strange enough, she's got a picture of a communist on her desk. And this is what they do in China. If they want to build a city, you're out. You move out of your home and you're relocated in some flat somewhere. And that's how they can build roads and rail and cities so fast that they don't have these planning restrictions. And of course, another thing with Heathrow is you're going to have to knock down villages, you're going to have to tunnel under the M25. So it's not just putting a strip of road down the side of another runway. It's quite a major project. Whether or not it will go ahead, I don't know. Heathrow might not want it. They might not think it's worth it after Gatwick and Stansted and Luton are expanding as well. But for me, it's still the major hub airport. It's what people know when they come to the UK. It's the major airport in the UK. It's very, very busy there. I've flown there recently. It's packed with people, packed with planes all lining up. And you can see them coming down in the sky. It's a major busy airport. So let's see what happens. She's also planning to reform planning applications across the building industry, and that should be good news for the building industry. It should get projects built faster. Sometimes planning can hold things up for 2 years, which is ridiculous. It certainly is ridiculous because you buy land and you paid for planning and architects and that sort of thing, and then you're stuck for a couple of years in the planning, which is, I've worked in as a councillor on the planning committee, and it's all done sort of manually. It goes back and forth, and you get a pre-application to say, yeah, that's okay, goes to full planning, no. Then it comes to the committee, and the committee argue and try and turn it down because the local residents don't want this building or another school there in their backyard. So it gets held up. They're called NIMBYs, by the way, not in my backyard. And it's a bit of a derogatory term, but most people wouldn't want some of the things that the government might be planning in their backyard. Would you want a nuclear power station built near you, or a sewage farm works, or a prison? Would you want that built near you? Or just next to your town, would you want a great big hospital with traffic and cars and all that sort of? Maybe you wouldn't, so, or 1,000 houses on the edge of your town or village. Maybe you wouldn't. So I don't blame some of these people, but the government plans to sweep that all away. Some of the other planning things they're going to change is this environmental things. Like, for instance, when they were building the HS2 to Birmingham, from London to Birmingham, they had to build a special tunnel to allow for bats, right? Bats, yes, a rare breed of bats. This tunnel was supposed to cost a few million, then it's 50 million. Apparently it's cost now £100 million for a tunnel for bats. Yeah, you couldn't make it up, could you? But they're planning to change all that and make it maybe that they would build a nature park instead of building a tunnel for bats. So there's all these things that hold things up. One of my family members works for a company that contracts for HS2, and you get things like protesters can hold up a project for a year, just trying to get rid of some squatters on land. Can take 6 months to a year to get rid of them. I won't go into all the details, but that's cost millions of pounds. Of course, it all ends up on the taxpayers' expense and us. So this project to make it faster to get to Birmingham is run into like 100 billion already. Some people said it would have been cheaper to knock down Birmingham and rebuild it nearer to London. So, and this is to get to Birmingham 15 minutes earlier or something. It's not even in Birmingham New City. It's in another place outside, slightly outside of Birmingham, and they'll have this walkway or some track. I don't know, but it's the whole thing is crazy to me. So there you go. That's what they plan to do. Good news if you're in the building industry. Good news if you want more houses built, but perhaps bad news if you're having something forced upon your local area because you can no longer appeal and go for judicial review. Let's see what happens. Let's see if these plans transpire. They're also planning to make this area between Oxford and Cambridge some sort of Silicon Valley, although it's not really a valley, is it? It's they're 60, 70 miles away from each other. One place is over there and one place is over there. I don't know how that kind of merges, even if you build a high-speed rail link, which they are building. That was the last government that signed off building a rail link, but there's no road link directly between the two cities. And this rail link, I guess they're already planning tunnels for bats and that sort of thing. It's going to be an enormous cost, and I'm not sure how many people will want to travel between Oxford and Cambridge anyway. If you're in Oxford, we're in Oxford, we're the best, and Cambridge are the same. So Cambridge, of course, has already got this science park there, and Oxford have too. A lot of innovations do come out of the UK, so let's see what happens. It's all good news. I hope that we do get the growth in the UK, because certainly there's a lot of jobs losses being announced. Sainsbury's, a couple of thousand jobs going there. Retail expected to lose 10,000 jobs. Lots of companies I know are shedding jobs, even smaller businesses saying, look, we're making people redundant. Why? Because of the tax, because of employers' national insurance tax, the extra tax that employers are having to pay. So one firm I talked to, it's cheaper for them to outsource things to India, where they don't pay national insurance for those people. So the government are going to lose that. By taxing people too high, they are going to lose the extra tax that they thought they would have got. Just like all the billionaires and the 10,000 millionaires that have left the UK that I talked about in a previous episode, that is going to cost hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds in lost revenue, lost business, lost employment. And people are leaving at the rate of every 45 minutes. And these are good people that we need. These are not people on low paid jobs. These are people that we need. Meanwhile, just finish off on this. I read a report here that 1 in 12 people in London is an illegal immigrant. And this is because of the massive rise in immigration, the massive illegal immigration that's come into the country. And that's, all right, some people say, I would leave them alone, they're working, but I don't know if they're paying taxes. If they are working and you're on a low paid job, you're drawing more out of the system than you are paying it back in taxes. What we need is high skilled immigration, people that can do the things we need, highly skilled engineers, medical scientists, business people, of course, people who start businesses and grow them. That's the type of people we need, not more baristas or farm workers, frankly. I know the farmers need work, but you can do temporary visas for that. You don't have to give full-time, full residence for those sorts of things. So that's my last little thing there. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you again on the next episode.